All right, I've got like 7:01. I think we can get started.
Okay.
Bruce, you want to do the roll call?
Okay, Chair Robert Hannon,
I'm here.
Robert Eisner. Here. Ned Stachin,
Here.
Richard Berlandi,
Here.
David Fox,
Here.
Neil Kelsey,
Here.
Mark Simpson,
Here.
Robert Canto. He said he wouldn't be here tonight. And then Emily Brick.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is a continuation of the public hearing, 80 South Road LLC and Sager Development LLC. I know, Jeff, do you or Phoebe want to take this, or do you want to give it off to the consultants?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd give it up to Tim Hollister.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I can.
Great. Good evening. Good evening, Commissioner Hannon and commission members. Tim Hollister, representing the applicant, along with Jeff Sager, Phoebe Sager, our consulting engineer, Jeff Board from Bowler Engineering, and our soil scientist, Megan Raymond from SLR. Thank you, as always, to Mr. Sear, Ms. Rutherford, and Ms. Michaud. Since we were here on the 19th of October, the applicant has responded to all of the staff technical and engineering comments. They were submitted to Mr. Sear last week. Basically, there's no substantive change to the plans. I would say most of the responses, which I believe were 75 in number, were information provided to clarify details. But I want to have Jeff Board of Bowler Engineering just take a brief couple minutes to explain the responses that he filed. Jeff, go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Hey, Bruce, for the purposes of this presentation, this is the slide deck we had from the previous presentation we did. If you can go to slide 8, I think that would be the best representation of colored rendering blowing up the area within the 150-foot upland review area. So to Tim's comment, out of all the comments we received, no substantive comments were received as far as the wetland impacts go. As I presented at the last hearing, we did provide engineering documents that took the state DOT drainage discharges out of directly impacting the existing riprap in the middle of the sites here. Prior to our redesign, we originally had a pipe that was going directly to that riprap to the culvert, and I know on the site walk it was brought up that there was some destabilization that had taken place of that existing culvert. So part of our redesign efforts here, we included notes to replace that, restore it in kind to what it should be with new riprap. Part of what came up at the last meeting was also in regards to invasive species within the channel itself. So we had agreed to remove any of those that are encountered. And I guess the biggest change from our end, and it affects the southwest portion of the upland review area to the rear of building A. Originally, we had a 5-foot retaining wall that came off the back side of those, the doors that exit the rear of that building. And there was a retaining wall right on the property line that introduced about 5 feet of fill on that corner within the upland review area. And one of the comments was the relation of that wall relative to the property line. So what we did was we came back and revised the plan to have basically decks in that vicinity. So they're basically elevated decks where underneath those decks, the existing grade can remain as is and just slightly grade away from the building, just exposing the foundation. So there's less work being done in the upland review area in that corner. So we felt that was a benefit to the project. Other than that, I think a lot of the changes were relating to planning and zoning. There was some landscaping comments, some of which affect the trees and landscaping within the upland review area up along South Road. Those comments were basically relating to sightline concerns from a DOT standpoint. So those were looked at. Sightlines work out great on all the driveways we're proposing, and the landscape had just shifted slightly onto our site. With that, everything we presented the last time still stands. Everything's in compliance with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual. The 2002 erosion and sediment control guidelines are still in place, and the limits of disturbance have remained unchanged from the previous presentation, other than the lack of fill, I guess, in the upland area behind Building A.
Thank you, Jeff. This is Tim Hollister. Just two things to add on. There's a specific question last time about what product would be used on site for ice and snow melt. And Megan Raymond identified that to staff as a DEP approved product. I don't have the name of it on my fingertips, but we did that. And I would also mention that there were, I think we mentioned this last time, there were two neighborhood meetings that Jeff and Phoebe Sager conducted during the week of October 17th. And then we were at zoning on October 24th, and there was no public comment or no opposition at that meeting. So other than having a few closing comments, that's all we have tonight, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think you're muted.
Are you there?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. So if you folks are done with the presentation, it sounds like you are, I'll just check with some of the commission members and see if they have any other questions, comments, considerations. So Ned?
Well, I like what you did with using decks instead of the patio at grade, and to alleviate having to put in all that fill. So the question is on building A, and then on building B, you still have the patios. Is there not much grade work that needs to be done there, that it's not necessary?
That's correct. So basically, to the west side of Building B, it's a relatively flat tabletop until you get past our limit of disturbance, the edge of the tree line there that's shown, and then it drops off to the channel. So on that high side, it's not the same as Building A, where Building A drops 4 to 5 feet from north to south. That's not the case on this side.
Okay. All right, and I like the work that they did to restore the outlet of the pipes going under the road, and I think that will help. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ned. Mark?
Gee, after Ned talked so highly of it, I'm wondering if he's gonna put a deposit down soon.
Hey.
So, no comments at this time.
Okay, thanks. Neil?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
No question, just a comment, noting that we did hold a public hearing as a precautionary measure, acquiescent to the request of the applicant. And I think the overall design of the project reflects that the applicant and design team have worked with the commission on quite a few projects. So all of the typical comments were addressed. I find no issues with the proposal. End of comments.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Dave?
Actually, I just had one question, and it's for Bruce. Is the staff satisfied with the responses to the engineering comments? I guess particularly those pertaining to the stormwater management system.
Yes, yes, we are. And thank you for asking. I was going to bring it up after, but they did come in late on Friday. So I spent between I had 2 applications drop off plans late on Friday, but I dug through them in the past couple of days. I haven't had a chance to formalize the actual comments, but going through them, I am satisfied with the storm drainage report and have no problem with this being made a condition of approval. Any and all comments that are left can be handled through the planning and zoning.
Thanks, Bruce. That's all I have.
All right, thanks, Dave. Emily, I don't know if you've got any comments or questions on this. I know you.
I got nothing. I have nothing at all. I'm sorry.
Okay, nope, that's fine. Rich?
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, the only comment I have, and I mean, I'm satisfied with the way that it's been laid out, is I was looking at that storm drainage channel and going in and doing some of the maintenance that probably hasn't been done in maybe, what, 60 years or so in that area. So I think that's going to make everybody's life a little bit easier. So I do appreciate the work that's being proposed there to kind of catch up with 50, 60 years worth of non-maintenance. So I appreciate that. Bruce, is there anybody from the public that has any questions, comments?
Let me see, there are a few people in attendance. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom function. Again, if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom function. All right, Chair, I don't see anything.
So no comments in the public?
Nope. Keep in mind, as it says in the agenda review, we still need to determine significance, and then we have to vote on the application.
Yeah, I mean, first thing though, I think at this point in time, we don't have any more comments from commission members.
Nope.
There's no input from the public, so I think we can close the hearing from that perspective. So
Mr. Chair,
close the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tim Hollister. Could
Yes.
I make a few quick closing comments?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'll be very brief.
Okay.
Just first, I want to point out that there is no evidence of adverse impact on a function of a wetland or a water course. The overall plan, as you've heard from Mr. Board, is to preserve the existing drainage pattern and improve it with respect to water quality. And we submit that all the criteria for the permit, Section 8 of your regulations have been satisfied. That would also, if you determine that there's no significant activity and no impact on a wetland or water course, that would also satisfy the no feasible and prudent alternative requirement. Recall, of course, that we had an issue with that on the 402 Farmington. Finally, I would just say that the applicant would be very appreciative if the commission can issue a decision tonight. PZC is going to meet on November 7th. We're hoping to finish up with them. And as I think you've heard, we are in a competitive situation for state funding with the application due in January. So a decision tonight would greatly assist in our tackling that very arduous timeline. And finally, the applicant is certainly accepting of the standard conditions and anything that Mr. Sear would propose in regard to his review. That's all I have. Thank you very much and appreciate your attention tonight.
Okay, so thank you, and I apologize for maybe cutting things off a little early on you.
That's okay. Thank you.
So I think with that, we'll close the hearing. I've got like 7:15. I mean, what's your pleasure, folks? I mean, I can say that I'm pretty much satisfied with, what I've seen on this. So my tendency, I think, would be to vote in favor of it. Like I said, my primary concern was that storm drainage area out there, and knowing that that's going to be revamped and handling the stormwater the way that it was originally designed to do. I'm happy with that. Otherwise, there's really no impact, direct impact on the wetlands. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there. But if that is the case and people kind of feel that way, let's first talk about whether or not you think this is a significant activity. My take is no, they're not directly encroaching into the wetlands. The work that is being done to me is more maintenance that's been neglected for a while. So I think it's something that needs to be done as part of the application, and that is appreciated, as I said. But I don't feel as though this is a significant activity. So I'll go Rich, your comments?
I would agree that it's a non-significant regulated activity.
Emily, any comments on it?
I have none, and I agree.
Okay, Dave?
Yeah, I agree. Not significant, and I'm comfortable going forward.
Robert?
I agree, non-significant regulated activity.
Neil?
Yeah, that's my view as well.
Okay, Mark?
Non-significant.
Thank you, Ned.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did a lot of work to adhere to our recommendations and are willing to work with the Bruce. So I think it's non-significant.
Okay, so seeing as how we seem to have pretty much a consensus on that, would somebody like to make a motion that this is a non-significant activity?
So
So
moved. Ned.
moved as a non-significant regulated activity.
Second, Ned.
I think there's a second, but I'm not sure who got it.
I said second, Ned. Oh.
Okay. So have a motion on the floor that this is a non-significant regulated activity. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining? Okay. The application itself, I mean, I didn't hear anybody making any comments that they have a great deal of heartburn with this. I think the applicant has put the time in on the project. I'm willing to go forward with it at this point in time. But again, I'll run it by quickly through commission members to see if you're ready to vote on it or not. So Rich?
Yeah, I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay, and also, just for the record, Rich, I know that you were not here for the original public hearing, but I want you to state on the record whether or not you did or did not read the information or listen to the video associated with the original hearing.
I did review the information that was presented at the last meeting and the recording.
Okay, I just wanted that on the record so that you're eligible to vote on that. Emily, you're not going to be able to vote on this because we have the full 7 regular members.
That's
Dave?
fine. Do you want me to stay for the meeting? Do you want me here?
No, you're fine here. You're fine.
I'm happy to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you. Dave?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Robert?
Yes.
Okay. Neil?
Yeah, I'd proceed to a vote.
Okay. Mark?
Yes, to a vote.
Okay. Ned?
I'm ready.
Okay. Based on what I heard earlier, does somebody want to make a motion to approve this application with any conditions that you feel are appropriate?
This is Ned. I'll make a motion to approve the application with the stipulations the staff is reviewing some of these plans and that the staff's comments would have to be adhered to in the project.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Dave will second.
Okay. Let's have a motion on the floor to approve the application with conditions that staff comments are fully addressed. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Good luck with the project.
On behalf of the applicant, thank you very much. And I want to note for everybody's information that Megan Raymond is running the New York Marathon on Sunday. Go Megan.
I have one question.
Louise.
I have a simple question for you, Megan. Why?
Yeah.
Take Bob with you. Bob would love to do it.
No, right now I'm in COVID protocol, folks.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, she's too modest to say it, but my understanding is last time she ran, she killed it.
Well,
Yeah,
I wish
that's
you
a
the
good
best of luck. It's going to be a great weekend, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it'll be fun. Thank you so much, guys.
just don't
Thank
look
you.
into it. Okay. Good luck.
Take care,
Good luck.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
New business. First item under new business, Carrier Holding LLC.
Yep, and I think we have Brian Panico from the engineering firm here.
Yes. For the record, Brian Panico, Harry Cole & Son, 876 South Main Street in Plantsville, here on behalf of Carrier Holding. just do a quick recap of the project. This is a 4-lot subdivision, 3 new lots, 1 existing home on Red Oak Hill Road. So the proposal is for a new subdivision off of a private drive cul-de-sac. I know that we kind of went through everything at the last meeting. I just want to touch base on a couple of the key factors. Stormwater management, everything is being collected at the road through a series of 2 catch basins and then discharged to a detention basin that is being highlighted there. One of the changes to that detention basin that we added was just a low-level pipe in that infiltration trench just to promote a little more infiltration, keep that a dry detention basin. And then we raised the orifice in the outlet control structure, which is a 90-degree V-notch, up 6 inches to try to, once again, promote as much infiltration and keep the groundwater flowing into that wetland as possible. Another change to that detention basin, we did add 1 more of the concrete infiltration discharge structures. So to recap on those are basically 48-inch galley units. They're the ones with the holes on the sides. And what we do is we put those underground. The outlet control structure will feed the water into those. Those will fill up. And if they reach and when they reach their maximum potential, the water will flow out of the top 2 rows of that. Bruce, I think it's on the last detail for the
Right there.
The water will flow out of that rather dissipated, less energy than it would out of a kind of standard level spreader or a flared end. And then it will kind of slowly work its way, sheet flow back overland to the wetlands. So once again, the change was just to add an additional one of those to kind of reduce any potential for erosion along that dissipation area as possible. Other changes to the plans, which once again, I know Bruce had mentioned, we weren't able to submit them until about Friday. But other changes to those plans included adding double row of silt fence along that entire eastern portion of the property, just to protect the wetland and everything downstream. We added temporary sedimentation basins uphill of that detention basin, the primary detention basin, and then silt fence in front of the detention basin to protect that during construction. We also added notes basically saying that anything that's going on with that existing house, there are some structures and what that need to be removed, and there is some maintenance on the downhill portion of the culvert crossing where it goes underneath the trail there. The maintenance that needs to be done on that is we're asking for that to be part of this application, but any future maintenance of any of this stuff, of any of the stormwater system, and then any other anything else that were to happen that's not part of this, to just be a something that would have to come back before this commission for approval. We also had a lot of just kind of minor changes to the stormwater management report, and just did some more changes to notes and stuff like that. But as far as the overall plan and presentation from the previous meeting, the overall plan hasn't really changed. If there's any further questions on this, I'd be happy to go into a little bit more detail on any of these items. But as I think the commission had a pretty good handle on it at the last meeting, and I think everybody was pretty comfortable. So I just want to touch base and make sure that Bruce, if I missed any of the other kind of changes that were wetlands related, let me know. But
no, I don't think so. And just to update the commission as well, we had gone through these comments. They have addressed most of them. There's a couple little things with the detention basin, but that's just going to mainly do with the outlet control structure, just to rework it a little bit. So other than that, I don't see any reason why this can't be approved as well, subject to final engineering review or staff review.
were there any other comments from any other personnel on this one? Or Brian, were you it?
No, I'm just looking to see.
Oh, I guess, okay, so Ned, any questions, comments, concerns?
It's just, like, I'm not sure how much clearing is being done here, in regards to removal of trees and then the other question was, is this going to be a town road or is this going to be a private, home subdivision road?
So this is a private road. There are, and just to kind of recap that again, I apologize. There are no wetlands on site, and we have no wetland impact. There's approximately 16,000 square feet of upland area on site, and there would be a total. The clearing is about 14,800 square feet. There is the only portion of that will actually be impacted by a structure would be the house on lot 3. And that's about 350 square feet of that upland area that's being impacted. Most of the upland area that's being impacted is being used for the detention basin.
Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Chair? Are you
Thanks.
there?
Mark?
No.
No questions.
Thank you. Neil?
Yeah, so in looking at the map, quite recently, there has been a lot of work done and clear cutting on some of the properties north of this parcel. I don't know if it's, I'm on the town map, and I don't know if it's property 1, 6, 2, or 4, but they've taken down a lot of trees, pretty much clear cut the land, and I know there's some development going in there. Has this project considered how that project is going to change the flow of water or impact this project at all?
Yes, so it is actually the same developer who's interested in doing this project as did that project. And so what we looked at from a watershed area, most of that project actually is being directed to the north. There's a detention basin on lot 1 there where Bruce is highlighting. There is a small portion of runoff that does come to the south through lot 6 down into that bottom corner there. And we did actually take a look at what the flow from that would do or was doing to the culvert and the kind of natural swale that exists between this property and the trail, that portion of the property that the town of Farmington owns. And so basically almost all of the water from that northern development, none of it really comes to this site. All of that water flows from more of a westerly to easterly direction. And so that's why the road picks up most of that water and it goes north. The portion of lot 6 that doesn't still flows west to east. And then after it's reached the trail, flows north to south. So none of that stormwater runoff from that development actually ends up really on this property. It more or less runs through the town of Farmington property and down to that culvert that runs under the trail. But we did analyze that culvert at the trail to take a look and see what the capacity of that would be with both the post-development conditions of that project to the north and the post-development conditions of our project to make sure that it could handle that, and it indeed did.
And how much of lot 6 is being cut? And how, and then, yeah, go ahead with that.
Yep, so I believe if, Bruce, if you go back to the subdivision plan, you can kind of see on the north end there that hatched area is the conservation easement. So technically it could be cleared up to that portion. So the calculations when they were done for that project assumed the tree clearing up to those limits and the rest of it being grass for their rear yard and side yards.
Okay, and then you're taking the same approach on, I guess it's lot 114. So you're getting as close to that. So you're leaving a strip in between the two.
Correct. So we basically tried to just expand what was there and kind of match it in order to create a buffer between the two projects.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Robert?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
I was wondering, it doesn't look like there's a hydrodynamic separator proposed prior to the discharge to the detention basin. Has that been considered at all?
So typically with a project that's more residential in nature, especially being that it's such a small development, the basins all are proposed with 4-foot sumps, which will take some of that out. And then the basin itself, since it's so so large but so shallow, essentially is going to act as a settling basin for any of the particulate that were coming out of the drainage system. Most of the flow from this site is really sheet flowing through the woods until it finally reaches that pavement. So the scale and the amount of impervious surface that we're seeing with that pavement and the size of the watershed area that's getting picked up doesn't really justify the use of a hydrodynamic separator in this instance. The steep sump catch basins and then the basin itself should suffice for all of the necessary water quality.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Dave. Emily?
I have nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Rich?
I just had one question on the water quality basin. What arrangements are being made for maintenance of that?
So since this is all going to be a private road and everything, that would be the responsibility of the homeowners association. So they'll be responsible. I know we added in some language into the plans as well regarding not only how they maintain it, but also reporting to staff or to the town with that as well. So generally speaking, since we're not using that as a temporary sediment basin, try to keep it as clean as possible during construction, and then post-construction, once everything is stabilized, some representative would come out for the homeowners association, do an analysis of it, and then it would just have to be cleaned of any sediment and anything that were to occur over the life of the project.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have.
I do have a couple of questions and a comment. I think my comment is, if I understood you correctly, Brian, you stated that there would be a double row of silt fence installed in the eastern part of the property. I'm sorry, but I'm not one of those that likes silt fence, especially as it comes close to wetland areas. And comment number 28 on engineering, they're also saying add straw wattle silt socks in addition to the silt fence along the easterly portion of the property. I would be looking at a silt sock or the straw wattle going in behind the silt fence, if anything. That's kind of how this commission has worked for years, and I don't really see any reason for changing that. So I don't like the idea of the 2 rows of silt fence, the 1 row of silt fence backed up by straw wattle, silt sock, and whatever term you want. That I think is more appropriate for the area. That's my comment. Question for you. Dave raised the issue about some type of stormwater separator, things of that nature. Would it be possible to put a hood or, in the catch basins? I mean, that would be something that might be relatively easy, and it may also minimize some of the maintenance getting into the detention basin that you have to worry about.
Absolutely. So to go back to your comment, I apologize. That was actually just me misspeaking, and as Bruce was highlighting on the plan there. So we did, it was proposed as silt fence. I actually said wattle backed by silt fence, but we can switch that to say silt fence backed by wattles. So that should take care of that. And absolutely, I think that generally we would recommend we put a hood maybe we usually put a hood at the last catch basin before it enters the basin. If you'd like to see it on both of them, I think that that's something the applicant would be agreeable to.
I mean, I think I would agree. They'd be more concerned about that last point of discharge at that basin. That's probably more important. And again, it may help with maintaining the basin as well. My other question deals with the basin, and I believe there was a comment on the plans that said you have not done percolation tests yet regarding the trench that's there. Was it 2 feet deep, 3 feet wide, I believe? So how positive are you that putting that in is going to get you to the desired results of the water actually infiltrating? I mean, have you done any soil testing at all? At least, if not so much perk tests, but have you done any testing to see what kind of soil is there, making sure there's no hard pan, things of that nature?
So at this time, we have not, and that's why we have the measure of that 6-inch perforated pipe underneath there. So that in the event that it is a very slow draining type of a soil, the basin will still be a dry detention basin. I believe, let me take a look. I believe that when we had done the project to the north, the soil actually was relatively, it was actually relatively good soil. It was kind of a sandy loam, kind of bony. And I know that the soil legend, the soil state of Connecticut soil mapping was showing that as to be a B soil. If you bear with me for one moment, I can let you know exactly what that was. Cheshire fine sandy loam, B-type rating. So our assumption is that it will drain. It may not be, pure sand. It may not drain really well and really quickly. But we kind of proposed this basin to not really be cutting into the ground too much because of its distance to the wetland. The assumption would be that if you get down too deep, you're going to hit that seasonal high water table. So given that it's B type of soil, we feel that it likely will infiltrate some of that water, and then the infiltration trench that's there with the stone to the surface is really meant for to kind of keep that going through the winter if the ground freezes, and then also having that kind of third line there with the pipe through that, just to ensure that it will still drain and stay dry even under the worst case storm events within 24 to 48 hours. So
okay, no, I mean, so it sounds as though there's some good thought process that went into this to make sure that you've got a sort of a backup system, if you will, in case the soils aren't that cooperative. Okay, no, that's fine. I appreciate the feedback on that. That's what I had. So, Bruce, I don't think we need to make a determination on this, or have we already done it? I just don't remember.
No, all done. All we need is a vote on at this point.
Okay. So I'll do a sort of quick survey of the commission members, because I didn't really hear much in opposition. But Rich, I'll start with you, your comments or your thought process.
I really don't have any concerns about this. And then I'd be amenable to approving it.
Okay, thank you. Dave,
I have no concerns either.
Robert,
No concern, just continue to address staff comments, and I agree with you, Bob, on the use of the silt song and the comment.
you, Neil,
No comments from me.
Mark,
Yeah, I'm ready for a vote.
okay, Ned,
Ned?
Ned muted.
Let's see. You there?
Yeah, I'm muted. Muted. Well, most of my points are moot anyway, so. I just had a question about the property on the corner. It's listed as McCaig. So is much of this, because I'm trying to figure out the contours. So house 4 or is much that can be draining onto his property? Because I know I see 258, 256, 254. It looks like it's going to start draining in that direction, because that won't make it to the sediment basin, I wouldn't think. And is that going to be a significant increase in drainage as proposed compared to, when this was just forest?
So we did look at the flow through there, and actually, if you look at kind of the contours, roughly where the Bruce's cursor is, there's almost like it looks as though they dug like a trench of some sort, or a swale of some sort there already, to pick up basically all of the side yard of the existing house as the water flows down the hill and direct it into the wetland. As of right now, the way that this is designed, only a small portion of the front yard of the house on lot 4 will actually drain that direction. The rest of it all is kind of graded to drain from a high point at roughly where the garage is, and then all around the side of the house there. And then a portion of the rear yard, kind of directly behind the garage, also will drain directly that toward that direction. So when we were looking at the overall watershed area right now, the proposed road will kind of cut off all of that drainage to the west that used to just come straight down the hill and into basically the yard of the neighbor there on the corner. So we've reduced the drainage area pretty substantially that was draining to that property compared to what would be draining there now.
Okay, and then the existing 18-inch metal pipe that's coming off of the wetland and bringing it underneath the rails to trails, that is still going to be sufficient?
Correct. So as part of our analysis of our stormwater management report, we did do an analysis of that culvert, and that's what I was kind of talking about when we were talking about the project to the north. We were looking at the total development of that project, what was draining to the culvert, and then we also looked at our total project impact and what it would have draining to the culvert. And what we found was that pipe would in fact be sufficient to handle that without backing up to some great degree throughout that area. So currently right now, where the wetland is, as you can kind of see outlined, is basically like the low point along the trail there. And that pipe is actually elevated. So it's not actually at the very bottom. It's not at the ground. It actually sits up slightly from grade. And so that's most likely what actually caused that wetland over time. If that pipe was at grade, all the water would have just constantly drained out, and it wouldn't be inundated in that little kind of pooling. It wouldn't have a place to pool. So right now, with our analysis, what we figured out is that the water will essentially, as it fills up in that little pool area and starts to discharge through that 18-inch metal pipe, not only will that metal pipe be able to handle it, but that water will still stay kind of on the town of Farmington property. It's not going to back up and impact any of the neighboring properties, even through the 100-year storm that we analyzed.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, all my questions are answered, so I'm ready.
And Emily, I didn't forget you. I'd come back to you and ask if you have any questions, comments.
You know what? I do not. I am keeping my own counsel.
Okay. All right. So the feeling I'm getting from the commission is people are ready to vote to approve the project. Sounds like, subject to meeting all staff conditions, and then what we had talked about tonight, which I know is one of the notes with the silt sock or straw wattle, and I think also adding the hood to at least the last outlet basin, prior to going into the detention basin. So would somebody care to make a motion to that effect?
So moved by Eisner.
Is there a second?
Second, Mark.
Second. Okay.
I have a motion on the floor to approve the project with the conditions that were discussed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is 26 Tane Mountain Road.
Yep, and we have the engineer here. He's Tom.
Good evening. My name's Tom Grimaldi. I'm a project engineer from Hillbrand Engineers in Bristol and Granby. Project's located at 26 Tane Mountain Road in the Unionville section of town. There's an existing, let's start on the right side of the house, Bruce, where the garage is. There's an existing septic tank there, and just down slope, it's a little bit difficult to see, is existing leach field. And then there's a circle just below it where a dry well is. It's a gray water system. And over to the right-hand side of the proposed tanks, there's also another portion of leach field right in there, Bruce. Yep, that's great. So currently the existing septic system is failing. There's been backup in the dwelling and breakout onto the ground. There's no one currently living in the house. So that's not an immediate concern of that failure because there's no one discharging water into the system. The existing system at its closest point in the back of the dwelling is 10 feet from the limit of inland wetlands and 13 feet from the intermittent water course. The section of septic leach field on the right side of the garage is about 13 feet from the wetlands and approximately 26 feet from the water course. What we're proposing to do is pump and crush the existing tank that's on the right side of the dwelling and put in a new septic tank and a force main with a pump chamber and a force main, and pump this across the front yard, saw cutting through the driveway. And our only alternative on this site, because of the constraint of the well, was I had to work closely with the Farmington Valley Health and the State Department of Public Health. I actually had the state on site with us while we were doing soil testing, knowing the limited area that we had to try to achieve designing a code complying septic system for this site. We were able to do it. We worked close with the state, and we we're able to get a variance to the well on each side of 30 feet. The well radius is showing on there 75 feet. So as you can see, we're well within the well radius with the leach fields. One of the things we had to do because of upslope ledge constraints, we tried to slide the system up as far as we could upslope to get it as far away from the inland wetlands as possible. And the ledge constraints are shown in dark gray just above the proposed leaching field. We split the leaching field in two areas. So we'll be pumping up to the first leach field area out by the road. The force main stops at a splitter box that we're calling DB1 baffled. And that splitter box will then divert the sewage effluent to the section of leaching field that's in the front side of the house closest to the road and equally to the back portion of the house. That section of leach field there. Because of ledge constraints, the back had ledge at like 32 inches. The front had ledge at 29 inches. There's approximately 4 feet of fill in both of these areas. Other than the variance of separation distance to the well and a variance to the front property line, the system itself is code compliant and does meet the state health code for a 4-bedroom septic system. It has been approved by the Farmington Valley Health District, and we have achieved the approval from the State Department of Public Health. The area in the upland review that is being cleared is just under 10,000 square feet, and the total area of disturbance within the upland review area is 11,600 square feet. One of the other items, knowing where we were adjacent to the wetlands, that we're requiring both the septic tank and the pump chamber to be made watertight. So those will be made watertight prior to installation, and then they will be sealed once all the pipes are attached. All the inspection work on site will be done by the Farmington Valley Health District and our firm. I'll actually be on site myself. And that was a requirement of both the state and the Farmington Valley Health District. So there'll be a lot of oversight in this area. We limited our clearing as tight as we could to fit the grading in. Currently, the closest portion of the rear section of leach field is 41.7 feet off perpendicular from the wetlands. And directly downslope is the closest is about 45 feet in the direction that the sewage effluent will travel. That pretty much sums it up. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Rich, I'll start with you.
From what I see here, you're pretty much boxed in as to what you can do. I don't have any other questions.
Emily?
Could you repeat for me the distance from that intermittent watercourse?
It's 41.7 feet from the closest corner perpendicular to the wetlands and 45 feet perpendicular to the contours in the direction of flow.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
The existing leaching field is just going to be abandoned?
Yeah, so now that no one's living in the house, that will not have to be touched. It'll be abandoned in place, and any of the biomat that's in there will renovate itself over time, and it'll be disconnected. The dry well will be disconnected as well, which is a gray water system off the back.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Robert?
I agree with Commissioner Berlanti. There's not a lot of options in existing house with a failing septic system. So if it was a new lot being proposed, it would be a different story, but this is necessary work given the existing failure. No additional comments.
you. Neil?
Yeah, I agree. Not a lot of options and it's, necessary work.
Mark?
No comments. Not an area of expertise for me.
Okay. Ned?
So the proposed tank is basically going where the existing tank was, and then you're adding the pump chamber.
That's correct. Yeah, so we're turning the tank 90 degrees to the existing tank. You could just see the existing tank underneath there. That's pointed
Yeah.
out. And so the new tank will be 90 degrees to that. The existing tank's way undersized, so this tank is a 1,500 gallon tank, dual compartment, outlet baffle and filter. Cleans up the sewage effluent. We get about 80% pre-treatment in these dual compartment tanks.
Okay. And then the abandoned leach field, is that just, pipe and stone, or is it any kind of built up member or something like that?
No, it's actually way into grade, probably into the groundwater table. I think it's at least 2 feet into grade, and it is pipe and stone, as well as the dry well. That's pipe and stone as well.
Okay. Yeah, I this with all this ledge and the tightness of the property, I agree that there aren't a lot of options here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ned. This is just sort of a curiosity question. Is the well in bedrock and it's sealed there?
Yeah, so the casing runs down to the bedrock and then it's grouted. One of the conditions of approval from the State Health Department was to have the well was recently raised above grade just in the past year. That well, they tested it, so they have a baseline, and the State Health Department is recommending that they test it in a year after the leach field is installed, just to verify that everything is okay. I have to tell you, in 33 years of doing this work, this is the first time I've asked for a variance that close to a well.
I understand what you're saying because I cringed a little as well. So
I cringed when I walked onto the site, Mr. Chairman.
And then in terms of how old is the house? Do you know offhand?
I think it was from the 1960s in that area.
No, the reason I'm asking is because, I mean, it's not always the case, but sometimes when you have a system that fails, yeah, I mean, it could be when it was installed or there could be some technical issues with it. You just get a little leery of, okay, even if they're putting in another system, what are the chances that that one might fail as well? Because now you're basically out of options here. You have a system in the front part of the house, and that isn't working anymore. Now you're putting a system in the back side of the house. So if that doesn't work, or you start having problems with the well, what ends up happening then?
Well, the good news on the new system is it's designed towards the health code technical standards. Back when the original septic systems were installed, that was prior to a health code for septic. Believe it or not, the health code for on-site sewage disposal did not start until 1982, and engineering wasn't involved until 1993. So with that said, those systems that were put in prior to 1982, most of them were rule of thumb. You got a 3-4 bedroom house. What can we fit? Put it in. Let's get it downslope. Everything's gravity. And let's put it as deep as possible because it's better if it's deeper. This way it won't break out. And today with the engineering, we do hydraulic calculations. That's all based on nitrogen loading, and the way the system is sized, it also has a factor of safety of 1.5 built into the code. So it's pretty safe. Worst case scenario, to answer your question on a failure, if they had a problem with this system, the sand fill will still be good. They can remove the actual leach field and clean up the biomat and replace the leach field with either the same type of leach field or a different type of leach field, maybe even, actually this leach field is what we call a proprietary leach field. 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to have done this at all. But today we're pretty lucky we have some of this new technology.
No, I appreciate your comments. This brings flashbacks to when I was taking some classes in school, so it's hitting a little too close to home. So no, but I appreciate your comments because I mean, you addressed what my concerns were on the site. Bruce, we just got this application in, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we cannot move on the application, but we do need to accept it, correct?
Yep. Accept it and vote on significance.
Yeah. So can I get a motion to accept the application?
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Dave will second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the application. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I just had one other question.
Yep.
There's an existing 4-inch pipe that looks like it's a roof drain that crosses the force main. It says it's being replaced. Is that just, is it? Yeah. Down a little
That's a
more.
roof leader. Yeah, that's a downspout extension.
Okay. That's not tying into this at all, right?
No,
That-
no. It'll be
it goes past
replaced.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be replaced in outlet to grade.
Okay, and that's just because it's going to interfere with the force main installation, so it's got to be replaced anyway?
Yes,
Okay.
we don't want the water discharging directly upslope of the structures.
Okay.
if possible.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Ned?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. My take is this is not a significant activity. I mean, it's trying to repair a bad situation. So, and it's still tied in with residential use, but I mean, that's my take on it. Rich, your take, significant, non-significant?
I would agree, not significant.
Okay, Emily?
Doesn't sound significant.
Okay, Dave,
I agree.
Robert,
Agree, not significant.
Neil,
I agree.
Mark,
I agree.
Ned?
Non-significant.
Okay, thank you. So can I get a motion that this is a non-significant regulated activity?
So moved, Mark.
Is there a second?
Second, Ned.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion on the floor that to accept this as a non-significant regulated activity. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining. Okay, so we've gone about as far as we can go tonight. So this will be on, what, is it December 7th?
7th, right?
Is that the next meeting, Bruce?
Get your calendar there.
December 7th.
Yep, 7th.
Okay. So this will be on for an action at that point in time. So moving on to,
Thank you very much, everyone.
oh, thank you.
See you
Yeah.
next month.
Appreciate your feedback on this one.
You're quite welcome.
Next item is lot 8745 River Road, right?
Yes. I think the applicant is online.
My name's Todd Clark from Blue Moon Design, 168 Main Street in Terryville. I'm helping Ashley out, who happens to be my daughter. I'm going to speak for her just because she gets a little nervous with public speaking. So as an architect, I'm only trained to think I know everything, but I'm going to try helping her out with this this approval process. So basically, it's approximately 3/4 of an acre of land that borders Connecticut Light and Power is to the north. The Trails for Rail is to the west. There's a commercial piece of property to the south, and then the Farmington River to the east. So basically, the property line to the east is sort of layered with three things: the 100-year flood zone, the high water mark for the river, and also the property line. So that kind of created maybe 20 square feet of the water course being on the property along the east side. So there's a common driveway that you're looking at in blue that is existing. It's a private drive. It's more or less maintained by the people to the south, which is a commercial property. And they've asked that we chip in for plowing and stuff like that in the future. Basically, we're just trying to put a single family home, a cape on this piece of property, and basically create a little bit of a flat area in the backyard that's shown in the area where the stockpile of the topsoil would be. Try to swale around the building and get most of it to drain to the southeast. There's a low spot on the south side of the property. The driveway is a little bit higher than everything else, so nothing's really going over the road and into the river as far as drainage. It should be going more or less to the southeast. We have roof leader infiltrators, yep, as in blue, and we'll do a final location for those in the field, but we're planning on infiltrating the water coming off the roof. To the west, there is a current sewer spur that comes off of Rails for Trails that's not under the paving. It's actually about 10 feet to the east of the trail line. So that's what we're planning on tapping into as far as the sanitary line. Basically, along that side, we're going to keep as many trees as possible, existing trees. We're probably only removing the trees enough to get the sanitary line to come into the house that way, right? And basically, there's a low spot that kind of moves through the site. We're putting the house on the low spot just because we have to work in between the grades, more or less, between Rails for Trails and the driveway. The piece of property that's east of the driveway, we're not touching. There is currently on Connecticut Light and Power a little pathway that leads to the river. That's what Ashley and her husband will be using if they want to go down near the river. We weren't planning on touching anything on the east side of the road. Basically, the soil type is as they described by the soil engineer, soil scientist. It's a Hinkley loamy sand. He's walked the whole property. There are no other wetlands on the land. It's just the water course of the Farmington River. We are disrupting a total of 15,500 square feet plus or minus. In the regulated area, it's about 12,500 square feet that we're disturbing. As far as if you have any further questions, again, feel free to ask. Whatever we've met with staff at least once, all of us together, and Ashley's met with Bruce a few times about this. So. Any questions?
Thank you. Ned, I'll start with you.
can't think of anything at the moment. You said you're not doing anything on the other side of the roadway or driveway.
Yeah.
Okay.
We were told that if there were invasive species, that we could get rid of those. We don't particularly have like a category of going out there and knowing what they are, but we do know some people that would know, and then we were probably going to let the town know, as we agreed to with Bruce and Shannon, that if there are anything there, we would probably remove it.
Okay. And along the back property line, is it where it's adjacent to the Rails to Trails property? Are you going to have any kind of it seems like your proposed contours are, I don't know, 30, 40 feet from the back property line. So you won't be disturbing anything along the back property line?
That wasn't our intent. No, only to put the sewer in.
Okay.
And that'll be gravity fed.
Okay. And is there water to this property, or is it a well?
We're going to be doing a well, and it'll probably be just north of the stockpile area. We just haven't located it exactly yet. It's going to be right in there. We figured it'd be better on that side because Connecticut Light and Power, it's just the power lines to the north, so it would be farther away from anybody else's property, more or less, to put the well on that side.
Okay. Do you have to take any particular thing into consideration in design that it's in the floodplain, although it is the 500-year floodplain?
Yeah.
I mean, is this going to be, I don't know, an elevated construction or anything like that?
Well, the first floor is going to be at 212, I believe. Yeah, and so the garage is going to be at 208. So we're trying to keep as much of the house above that flood line.
Which is 207.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ned. Mark?
So looking at this, so there is a basement for this house?
Yes.
So I assume the digging out the foundation, you would be taking whatever you dig out would be in the stockpile. You would stockpile it over there, or?
There's topsoil. I've kind of looked at it briefly. Again, I'm not a surveyor, but we're trying to like cut enough in the backyard to shove it forward along the front of the house, just to get the driveway not to be, because there's kind of like a ridge where the driveway is, and then it goes back down on the property. So we don't want to disrupt the flow kind of going to the southeast, but we at the same time we don't want to have like a problem with water ponding on top of the driveway. So that was our concept, more or less.
You don't think there'd be any, water issues or anything, like need for a sump pump or anything like that? Or is that envisioned?
I would probably put the hole in for a sump pump, but to be honest, the two low spots to the north and to the south are dry. So there's no ponding going on at that spot. So I assume the sandy, loamy soil is draining pretty well.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I live by the river, and it seemed to me that there was never water. There was always seemed to be, it would flow down into the river and off the property. So that's all the questions I have.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Neil?
I don't have anything, thanks.
All right, thank you. Robert?
The comment that the soil and erosion control, if this is approved, the soil and erosion control during construction is going to be really important, because if you do have a lot of disturbed land and we have excessive rain, or if it's going to be construction over the winter, that soil erosion control is going to be critical to protecting the river. So that's my comment. The question is, on the site plan over where it says Farmington River, you have approximate property line. What is the apparent OHW line?
Would it, that, I think that's the high water line as they've described, is also pretty much the property line. But when you're saying, what is it? What does that mean?
Yeah, the acronym OHW, so that's the high water line.
Ordinary, it's the ordinary high water line. Excuse
Okay,
me.
thanks.
Hands up.
Yeah.
And my last question is, who's gonna oversee the construction?
I will be.
Okay, so again, that goes back to my first point, just that the soil and erosion control installation and maintenance is going to
Sure.
be critical, assuming approval. End of comments.
Bruce has definitely made it clear that he doesn't want anything going across that private drive. So to be friendly neighbors, that's exactly what we're going to be looking at as far as anything, you know, for soil erosion control.
Thank you.
Dave,
No questions.
Emily,
As long as the prior discussion of erosion moves forward, I have nothing else.
Rich,
I assume that the heavy dashed line is some type of silt fence on the, looks like on the north and south sides.
That's correct.
Yeah, I think we should, with the river on the east side, you might want to consider extending that across the entire front of the
Okay.
property, except for the construction entrance. And the existing bituminous driveway, is that staying
Yes.
as it is? Okay,
Yes.
so you're not doing anything with the driveway itself.
No.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
thanks, Rich. Yeah, I mean, I echo Robert Eisner's comments. I mean, to me, one of the more critical things here is the erosion sedimentation control, both in terms of construction and also once you start trying to finalize the property, getting things to grow on it and making sure we're not having any type of runoff problems. There's a fair amount of grading. It looks as though a lot of it pretty much goes, I'm trying to see, Bruce, where's the north arrow? I'm assuming.
North is up.
Okay, so it looks as though the low spot is going towards the south.
Yes.
Down towards the 204.
Goes this way and goes
Yeah.
that way. So
Yeah, because yeah, I'm looking at where the limit of clearing is down to the southeastern side, where it almost looks like it's a little bit of a bowl that's there. It's naturally created.
That's correct.
Yeah, so some of the drainage goes that way. Just again, making sure that whatever's being done is not adversely impacting any other folks. The other thing, and this is just based upon some of the weird weather patterns that we're seeing all across the globe. I think you've got the 500-year flood elevation and I thought I heard Ashley maybe say it was 207.
That's correct.
So some of the area that is actually under construction for grading, things of that nature, fall below the 207. So it's just, you know, one of those rare occasions you may need to have sort of a plan in your back pocket as to if we are ending up seeing one of those weird weather events. You
Okay.
know, is there something that you might be able to do on the site to kind of stabilize or make sure you don't lose a lot of what you had? You know, the 207, it comes up a fair way into the property prior to your regrading.
Right.
So it's just something that you might need to, kind of come up with a backup plan in case we happen to have one of those crazy storms, which, I mean, you're hearing about them everywhere. So it's just something I think you might want to take into consideration. Hopefully if this goes forward, you don't even have to worry about it, but it probably wouldn't hurt to
Okay,
think about it. Because if you've got materials where you're under construction and you're storing them there, I mean, it creates major problems all the way around. So
okay,
I just think that might be something you want to think about. But to me, again, the biggest issue is going to be the erosion sedimentation control plan, both prior to construction and during construction and site stabilization. So
okay.
I'll leave it at that at this point in time. So Bruce, this is another one where it's accept the application and consider a decision as to significant or non-significant.
Exactly, sir.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure if anyone wants to do a
Site visit.
site walk on
I
that.
think we need to, yeah, we're so close to Farmington River. I think we need a site walk. Bruce, can I, Mr. Chairman, through you, is this an approved building lot or, I mean, how is this?
No, this is currently zoned as a commercial zone. So anyone can come in here now to build a commercial use. So what the applicant is looking to change it to a residential use. So this is just step one. This is getting your approval.
Yeah.
And then actually moving over to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then requesting a zone change.
And actually, while I think about it, this is something else that may need to keep in the back of your mind as well. I mean, granted, I understand that people would be able to walk to the back part of the property, because the last thing that we want to see a possibility of is having floods and having emergency personnel having to go down there to rescue people. And then possibly putting their lives in danger too. So that's something that may need to, if nothing else, at least make a comment in terms of accessing higher ground.
The first floor is 212. The backyard, as you sort of step off into the backyard, is at 211. So it's going to be substantially higher than the 207 elevation.
Yeah, again, my concern is if you're going to get emergency personnel going there, they're going down most likely the driveway right of way, so that's, again, it's just a concern I have, having done some work in town over the years. But I know if it was commercial, basically you don't have to worry about people living there. So that's the one caveat on going with a residential development. I mean, I'm not saying it's a critical factor, but it's something that may come into play.
There is a house to the north on the other side of Connecticut Light and Power. There's also an apartment to the south that's on the commercial land.
Okay.
The other thing, one thing I'm noticing on this is that there's a low point adjacent, on the north, the Connecticut Line Power Land, 204. That's so, I mean, if you start to get a flood and then water's going to pond there, and then if the force of the water can, working within that ponding area can push the water up that's sitting there, and then I don't know, I think it can go farther into that land, just because the elevations help you with the still water, but when you've got a lot of force flowing in a river in a flood stage, this little bit of elevation difference isn't going to offer a lot of protection. And almost the entire house is in the 150-foot upland review area.
Right.
So I don't know. There's a lot of challenges here.
So first things first, can I get a motion to accept the application?
This is Rich, so moved.
Is there a second?
Mark, second.
Okay, so you have a motion on the floor to accept the application. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining. Okay, and indirectly, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly on this. I think, Ned, you were making the comment. Do we want a site walk out there? And if we want a site walk, do we then hold off on a determination as to significance based upon the results of the site walk? So let me just run through, see if people feel as though a site walk would be appropriate here. Rich?
Yeah, I think a site walk would be appropriate, and we probably should wait until after the site walk to determine significance, from my perspective.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree. Yes to both.
Robert?
Agree, yes to both.
Neil?
Agree to both.
Mark?
I agree.
Ned?
Yeah, I agree. And I would request that they don't have to get every corner, but like maybe locate the four corners of the house. I know for our site visit.
Okay. And I agree as well. So Bruce, we're going to hold off on a determination, but we need to schedule a site walk for this property.
Okay. We got some time. We don't have to be till December 7th, so. Okay,
Yep. And
I'll talk with the applicant. I'll see when they can get that staked out,
okay.
and then we'll go from there.
Okay, and to be on the safe side, you might want to give us some directions, because when you start going on private roads, it doesn't always come up on GPS.
Okay, we can do that.
All right, so I think that's about all we can do at this point in time, but we'll schedule the site walk prior to the next meeting, which is December 7th. Okay. All right.
You.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. Next item on the agenda is 93 Lido Road.
How's it going?
So far, so good. Bruce, were you able to find anything out about the question that I had raised?
Yes, I did, and we did get one, and I put it with the application.
Perfect. Okay. Nope, that just makes life a little bit easier.
Oh, it does. Thank you. That was just getting the signature from the homeowner. Everybody.
Okay. So I believe you have some interest in this property, and would you care to explain what it is you're looking at doing out here?
So the client has a pre-existing structure on the back of the house.
Excuse me, can you state your name for the record?
So I'm Matthew Kraus with New England Construction Home Improvement. I believe
you,
my
sir.
father, Brian Kraus, is here somewhere as well too. And I believe the client is present on her cell phone. So there's a structure on the back of the house. She was looking to turn into an enclosed dining room to view the lake. The back of the house has no windows or anything like that. So the beautiful view of the lake she can't use. So our understanding is none of that encroached in the wetlands. I believe the one covered portion does. And then she was also looking to add a patio. I don't believe it adds any water to the lake. I don't think it affects drainage at all. It doesn't affect much.
And just for the record, commissioners, I put this on there, the GIS map just showing how much of the area, it's pretty much all lawn from the back of the house down to the edge of the lake. So they would be disturbing this corner of the property here. There's an existing patio there now. So I felt that maybe we could vote on this or determine this based on a what is it? Thank you. As of right. I thought as of right. Thank you.
No problem.
You all done with your presentation?
But yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
All right.
Nat, I'll start with you.
So the area that you have marked off as addition, that's currently a patio, is that correct?
It's a big rotten deck.
Okay.
So the
And
deck,
I,
the deck is here, roughly the same size as the dining room. So they're gonna take that out, add this, build a dining room over it, add this covered porch area and a future patio.
okay.
So really the extension is the covered area and the patio.
But Bruce, just to interrupt for a second, I think that the way that we saw the original layout, that was more dealing with the structures that did not include the patio area, correct?
Exactly. This plan here, they show is he sketched in the addition and the covered patio. That's what they're doing as part of their application. But then the homeowner is going to be looking to come in and do a patio after that.
So we're kind of looking to just get it all approved at once. That's the goal.
Yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure that I was clear on that this diagram is just showing where the new dining room would go and the covered porch area. The patio is separate and it's not shown on this particular map. And that's fine. Just want to be clear about that.
Okay, and now, all right, so where you have addition on that map, yeah, something's, because it looks like in the other drawing that it comes kind of straight off of that.
This one here.
Yeah, okay,
So there's
so
the deck. Yeah, this is the deck / new dining room. Here's
right.
the covered patio area here, and then here's the patio, and here's the uncovered patio area.
all right, so this is there going to be excavation for a full basement, or is this
So it's going to be a crawl space with a cement floor. And anytime we do that, we do a layer of silt fence around where we're working, and we'd be more than happy to throw some silt sock in front of or behind that if that's what you guys request. We have no issue doing that. But under no circumstances would any dirt leach or go anywhere else on the property. As we're digging, it's going to be removed. There's nowhere to store it or hold it or put it. So it's going directly from the ground into the truck and leaving the property.
okay? All right, yeah, I agree. There's not a whole big, a lot of change. If it just looks like you're going out a little bit past the
about 3 feet.
house. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, that's all I have for questions. Thank you.
And Mark?
So by looking at the diagram, the closest this addition is what, 110 feet from the water's edge, by what I could see.
Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mark. Neil?
I don't have any questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
This is either for the applicant or for Bruce. Is the grade on the property, is it relatively flat or is it fairly steep down to the lake?
It varies. The portion where the addition is extremely flat. Where the covered portico is going to be, it's extremely flat. Where the intended patio goes, they're looking to level that off, and it's about I believe from the point closest to the house towards the lake, it's about a 1 foot drop. So behind that would get a layer of filter fabric and silt sock.
And then after that, Commissioner, just kind of a gentle slope all the way back down the lake.
Very gentle.
Okay, and the reason I ask is with 110 to 115 feet separating distance to the lake, it's relatively flat. The potential for significant erosion is pretty minimal. So I appreciate the applicant, already saying you'd be willing to incorporate silt sock based on the conversations with other applicants before this. But beyond that, just soil and erosion control during construction is going to be key. I don't have any significant concerns with the proposal.
Thanks, Robert. Dave?
No questions.
Emily?
This is really straightforward. I have nothing.
Okay. Rich?
No questions.
Okay, I don't really have anything either. I guess so. The question that I have for commission members is, do you feel as though we need to accept an application, do a site walk, anything along those lines? Or is this something that you feel as though, given the separation distance between what's being proposed and the lake, part of what they're doing is replacing an existing structure? So do you feel as though that this is something that is allowed by right? So Ned, you want to take a shot at this one?
Well, I do think that I'm looking at on the Microsoft Bing Maps, and I could see the deck coming off, and it does extend out pretty far. So as opposed to the footprint isn't changing a lot, and they're just kind of rearranging what they have on there, and so it's only going to be a crawl space and not a full basement excavation. I would think this could be a use by right. I don't think the patio isn't real huge or anything. And it just looks like, we'll just be replacing the deck with a dining room. That's all I got.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a major impact. So I would just say it's a right for the owner.
Okay, thank you. Neil?
Yeah, I don't see it any differently. I think it's within owner's rights.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I could go along with it's a use as of right. The neighborhood was there before our regulations. The addition, well, it is replacing an existing deck. There is, a small expansion of that, but it's reasonable within that normal use and enjoyment of the existing residential property.
Okay,
So use as of right is okay.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Yeah, I agree with Robert's reasoning.
Okay, Emily?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Rich?
Yeah, I would agree with Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well. I think that the one caveat on all of this is that any contract work that's being done on site have to work very closely with town staff to make sure that proper erosion sedimentation control measures are installed and everything is stabilized once the project is done. So that would be the biggest concern I have, is making sure that everybody's working closely with town staff. So
can I respond to that?
Done. Pardon?
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
So for erosion measures, I've had great success with cocoa matting to retain the soil while seed is trying to come in. So that would be what I suggest to use on the rear of the property to reestablish the grass. And I believe she's also going to be putting in some plants around the patio with mulch. So
Yeah, but my comment is just more that just need to work closely with town staff. to
Sure.
Make sure that everybody knows what needs to be done and when it needs to be done. I think that's the primary concern that probably all of us have. Appreciate, your comments in terms of adding the silt sock, things of that nature. So it makes our life a little bit easier as well. So Bruce, if the general consensus is this is something that's allowed by right, we don't really need to vote on it, do we?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Well, you vote on that, but you're not voting on the application per se, because.
Okay, so officially you would like to have that on the record?
Yeah, exactly. So.
Okay, so would someone care to make a motion that this is an activity that is allowed by right?
Mr. Chairman, before I do that, hey, Bruce, this is Robert Eisman. Do you have a citation? It's 10.4. Do you know the?
Yes. Wrote it right in there, didn't I? Yes, I did. Section 4A.4.
8.4. Okay, thank you.
Forgot I wrote that.
So with that, I would move to deem the project residential use as of right, consistent with section 4.A.4 of our regulations.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Ned.
Okay, so we have a motion to consider this activity an allowed use under, was it 4A4, I believe, Bruce?
Yeah, 4A.4.
Okay. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining? Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Next item, 9 Apple Tree Lane, cease and desist order.
So what happens when you don't work with staff, right? All right. Apple Tree. All right, this is the post plan set. And open. And then this one. All right. Give everyone a little heads up here. We had I have a George Logan on. I think George, are you there?
Certainly am.
All right, just to give everyone a little heads up, if you remember, or just an update, if you remember, we had approved this back in July. It was for it's for an addition off the back of the house and then an enclosed pool in the back of the property. The owner had wanted to do
The application was withdrawn.
Huh?
And the garage part of the
Yep, and
application.
as I said, yep, and I was
withdrawn.
getting there, the application had, he had a garage in the back. Come to find out, it was a little bit, we had concerns with the size, what was being used for. So the applicant had pulled it out as part of the application. So the application was left to be just the addition and the enclosed pool. It was approved. As you can see here, there was wetlands flagged on this side, as well as wetlands flagged on the other side along where all this water comes in. It comes down the swale, crossed through piping into a small opening, and then back into the piping underneath the apple tree down to New Britain. There's a swale here as well. So applicant got his permit, got started working on it, and this is what it looked like before. Okay, this is the swale up off on the right going up to the north, the grass swale. All right, this is coming underneath the driveway. And same thing coming back out, going back underneath, and then heading out towards New Britain Avenue. This is again looking off the back property. There's that grass swale up into this wetland area up in there. All right. We went out there. Photos were taken. What was it? October 19th. All right. So we went out there and this is what we found. They had gone through and they had started grading up all that swale that was all lined with the grass. All right. Yes, second here. All right. So they excavated out that swale. They cleared in the back of the property and disturbed all this area, all this wetland. It looks like they were probably trying to attempt to formalize the swale. All right. This is off to the left side of the house as it goes up towards where the pool was or is going. And then as part of that, we have access to some aerial photos. This is what it looked like before. And this was on April 11th, all right, of this year. Okay, you can see the limits of the clearing and the lawn and the swale area. And this is what it looked like in September of this year. So they cleared all the way to the property line, out onto the abutting property owner's property, and all the way back around. So I'll flick back and forth and you can see the difference of what was done. So this area that was this tree line that was here before they started has now been pushed all the way to this westerly up property line. So again, all from property line to property line, all cleared. All right, so a formal cease and desist was issued, made contact with them, requested soil and erosion control to be installed a few times. As of this day, I think only a hay bale has been installed right here. So we were looking for more erosion and sedimentation control with the end of the year being here and having a very unstable ground. So I talked with the soil scientist that was of record, Bill Jackson. He met with the owner, he took a look at it, and then that's when Bill had contacted George Logan. And I think at this point the owner has contracted with George Logan to start reviewing the process. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, we can pass this over to George and we can let him do his presentation.
I have a question for George.
All right.
Are you trying to put a new line of business together here?
Where is that?
Yeah, apparently I have. I was in Bloomfield doing the same thing yesterday, and I won't go any further than that. It appears I've been doing a lot of this lately. Yes, I'm wondering if it's possible, Bruce, for me to share my screen.
We don't let people share. George, do you have something that you want to show us, or?
I do, but that's fine. I don't have to. I can go. Okay. I can just do a narrative.
Okay.
What I think, but I do have some additional information that I would like to share at some point. I don't think this is going to end tonight. Mm-hmm. I think we have a little a road ahead of us because we have a winter, so we have to do certain things, and obviously we can't do any potential restoration until next season. So to get you back to my involvement. So my involvement started last week on the 26th. I had a call the previous day by my colleague and good friend, actually, William Jackson, who's also online. So if you have any questions of him, if I'm deficient in saying certain things, certainly you can ask him. And also the property owner is online too. And you may ask him questions too. So first order of business, I got a download from Mr. Jackson electronically. We had a discussion over the phone. And I think the next day on the 26th, we proceeded to meet at the site and do a quick site review. One of the things I was interested in is to verify the wetland delineation by Mr. Jackson. I spent a little time in the back of the property there, all the way to the rest of the property boundary, making sure that there are no additional wetlands because if you are familiar with the wetland survey, there is a mapping unit of Raypole that encumbers a significant portion of the site on the west side. So I'm like, well, this is very interesting. So I actually dug a few holes there. And later on yesterday, I was able to actually do a little bit of trespassing to see if maybe the wetlands were on the other side. And they weren't. So we do have watch-out soils. They're till-derived soils, and that probably extends way into the property, at least to the center. And then there's a gradation to well-drained agar-loam soils, which are a different animal. All right. But what I couldn't determine is exactly where the wetland boundary that Mr. Jackson had put in the field was, because all those flags were gone. So we made a phone call to the surveyor who came out on the 28th and restaked every single flag that Mr. Jackson had put up. And if you go back to the original plan there, Bruce, what you will notice is that Mr. Jackson at that time didn't really know where the property boundary was. So he extended his A line all the way to a stone wall, which apparently is on the northern side of the property lane next door, which is 11 Apple Tree, to the edge of 1200 New Britain Avenue, which is the next property over. And there's a prominent stone wall there. I was able to find that pin that you see in the corner there. Both actually, we found both pins. So that did help for me to review the fact that there were some stakes there. That gives me an idea of where the wetland flags were. And then I spent a little more time yesterday on the property. At some point, the owner came around and we had a little discussion. Now, what's more clear is to what's on the actual site. So I'm a little more confident to tell you where the wetland was and what it looked like on 9 Apple Tree. And part of the reason is because Mr. Jackson was able to also send me some aerial photographs, some of his photos that he took during the wetland delineation back in June. So I'm a little more clear as to what's going on there. Yes, the bottom of the swale has been scarified and or excavated. So I did probe first on the property within what had been excavated to see what was underneath, to determine whether those, what are we talking about here? I did not find any wetland soils or any wetland subsoils within the swale on the property, which kind of makes sense because this was an excavated swale that was probably done sometime prior to the development of this property. I did look at 1965 aerial photograph. There is no swale. I did look at the 1970 aerial photograph, and I think I start seeing the beginning of a swale, and you can also see the outline of Apple Tree Lane as it was being probably starting to develop, at least the road. Once you get to about, say, flag probably 1A3, and A3, that's where the transition happens between the till soils and the outwash soils, which is a good thing in one sense, is that whatever water is coming down for a watershed, which is significant at large. I don't have an idea yet, but the wetlands or these drainage areas go to the north for a while, and then you have that whole hillside that's coming down. But anyhow, from that point on, the soils are pretty sandy, and they're more sandy now because they've been excavated. You have a loamy fine sand, which is good, which means the water is infiltrating there before it gets to the actual pipe in the smaller storms. The excavation within the swale on the site was done down to the compact till, which is red. So that's pretty obvious to see. And then once you start leaving, if we go northwest, things get a little more unclear to me there. By the way, a little segue here. I did contact with the surveyor today. I asked him if he had any topography for at least the site, the 9 Apple Tree Lane. He says he thinks he does, and he will provide that, but there is no topography for the property to the north on 11. And the only thing you could do there is to look at the Connecticut, or basically the state GIS LiDAR from 2016, which is a 1-foot contour, which in my estimation is usually pretty accurate. And what you will see there as this line goes up is that there is the grade has changed a little bit there. I don't know to what extent it's changed. And so one of the things that I would recommend in order for me to tease out exactly what's going on there as far as soils and grading is possibly for a little topography to be done there by the surveyor. That would be very helpful. Now, if you look at the aerial photographs, including the 2022, which I looked at Google. I don't know if you have one that shows what I thought I was seeing. What you will see, there you go. It's not as good. It's not as good resolution as what I had, but that's fine. For the next time, I'll make sure I send you everything so you can share. But you can very much see the profile of a shallow dug ditch that extends to through the site, the 11 Apple Tree before it was cleared, and then it extends further to the north, and through either the property in 1100 New Britain Avenue, the one that's immediately to the west. So it's obvious that there's something there, but what you see also in the archival aerial photographs is that the wetland profile from the signature of what I'm looking at stops at that stone wall, and then there's a little break in the stone wall, and the water continues eventually to this dug ditch, which was an upland source for the most part. Now, however, just on the south side of the stone wall, so on 11 Apple Tree, there are soil profiles, wetland, poorly drained soil profiles there within the lower portion of the areas that exist today. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think there is a little bit of an extension of a wetland, potentially from the northern properties onto 11 Apple Tree Lane. I was wondering, because you can see that house there was recently built and probably permitted just to the north, which is 1100 North. And I'm wondering if there is a plan that one can avail that might show wetland boundary in that might be helpful to point us in the right direction. Because obviously this land on 11 Apple Tree has been so disturbed that I'm really having troubles trying to figure out if there has been a small change, a big change. I mean, obviously the station's all gone. And from what I saw from the aerial photographs, there was a wooded component, but there was also a shrub, and sort of meadow component also, which you can kind of see there in the lighter taupe color. So going forward, I think I'm absolutely in agreement with Bruce that we need to, and I've talked to Mr. Rodriguez, and he's more than willing to do that, and that is to set up a couple of more hay bale check dams, not just the one that's blocking silt from going into the pipe, but also one around the corner and one further up, so that when the significant flows happen, we're not starting to migrate. Yes, and maybe also down there, as Bruce is pointing
Exactly,
out.
yep. Over here too.
Over there too, because, that takes a corner and goes to the road. So that's one thing. Then the other question would be that we were discussing today. I had a quick call with Bruce as to what would need to happen to stabilize for the winter season. Apart from that, and in my view, we would have to at least put some straw down from the edge of the currently existing swale to a point, at least say 25 to 30, maybe 40 feet up gradient of that. Because what I've noticed is once you get above that, especially in the back of the site where most of the disturbance, the clearing has happened, the pitch is to the other side, so the pitch starts going towards the west. So we wouldn't be gaining anything by necessarily strawing the whole thing down, but at least we need to do that strip there to protect any proximal soil that's exposed from getting in there while we come up with a plan for what we need to do for restoration. Obviously, the restoration will be something that's going to be implemented during the growing season. So we do, and I would need a little time to figure some of these other things that I'm talking about, especially on the property to the north on 11 Apple Tree, and then come up with a plan that will be satisfactory for the commission as far as restoration of a buffer to the regulated resource. And I'm wondering, does it make sense for, I don't know if the commission wants to look at what's out there now, or we just, Bruce and I and Shannon can work those things out.
I had also requested from the property owner to have the surveyor actually stake or actually locate this area as well. So that way, as we show in here, looking for a detailed plan of where the property line is, where this clearing has actually occurred. So we have it all on a map, and then from there, George can develop his restoration plan. I'd like to see this stabilized. I don't know, what were you saying, Jeff, or George, 25 feet you were saying?
So, well, for where the good soils are?
No, for the straw, you were saying, sorry, for straw.
I would say the straw would have to go up the slope from the swale. I wouldn't put it in the swale itself, because it's just going to wash away. But up from there where the exposed soil is coming down to it, so we don't get an additional migration into the swale.
Because I think you would at least need this area from the before it goes into the curve. I mean, this I think is flatter up in here, but I think this needs to have a lot of heavy straw put down, as you said, with with a few check dams.
Check dams, right. Now, one thing that we might consider doing this winter or not, one of the restorations obviously is going to be how are we going to restore the actual swale, which had grasses, and I saw some pictures. Is the further up you went, the more wetland indicator plants there are. There's still some that remain on the northern side of, of the swale, like jewelweed and sticktights and the like. How is that swale going to be stabilized? Now, one of the problems is in many places, it doesn't really have good topsoil left because it was scarified down into the till, especially the red till. So if I was going to recommend vegetated cover for that, which was there before, I would want to put down a little bit, at least 2 or 3 inches of topsoil in those areas that are lacking, where you're down to hard subsoil. But to do that, you're just going to wash it away. So you would have to combine that with some jute matching, or as the previous application was talking about, the coconut mat. So they're several types of coconut mats, light ones to heavy ones, and you would do that. But I think that would happen probably a better service to be done again in the spring.
George, is any of that wetland soil still on site, or has it all been stockpiled, or has it all been shipped out, or just all spread around?
So my view is that there was no wetland soil to speak of for the entire length of the swale on said property. Once you get off the property to the north on 11 Apple Tree, things start changing, and certainly by the time you get close to the wall, there were wetland profiles. So there is no wetlands soil. I think the way that Mr. Jackson delineated that, knowing that we have wetlands above, and we have base flow, that this was more acting as a vegetated watercourse, if you will, and instead of being defined as a regulated area based on soil type, at least on the property. I think further up that changed. So we would have to import some topsoil, good quality topsoil at some point when we're ready to revegetate the soil. And I must also mention that there is where the original shallow swale, and by the way, on said property on 9 Apple Tree, the swale was more incised, and I verified that with Mr. Jackson. Once you get off the property into 11 Apple Tree, it was much shallower, which is consistent with what you see further up on the adjacent property that was not affected. So I think, yeah, where was I going with this? Oh yeah, that there's a side swale. So one of the things that Mr. Rodriguez was concerned about, which probably was a concern before these lots were developed, is that there's a lot of water that's coming off the hillside, which goes steeply up, and some portions off to the west in the area that's wooded. And so there's a little side channel that was dug out in uplands that parallels the stone wall, which is that northern property boundary. And I have pictures about that, not that one, Bruce, but the one, the next one over. So there's a stone wall right there. There's a break where the drainage came through. And so there's a small ditch that's shunting water from the hillside directly to that, which will end up being a wet ditch at some point.
Yeah, I have walked, or Shannon and I have walked this before. This is a pretty decent sized wetland, and then a conservation easement that pretty much walks it up. I want to say somewhere around down through here, comes up and then goes underneath the driveway of the shared driveway, and then actually continues north. So
it continues north, and then there's, I think, there's a roadway up there that names escapes me, and that's sort of the cutoff. That's
reservation. So I'll get you the plan on this, because I know there was a subdivision plan. I think it actually showed all the wetland flags, and then it shows the conservation easement. That was actually,
yeah, that would definitely be helpful.
okay.
And again, Mr. Jackson is here if you want to ask him any questions and his recollection.
You all done with your so you're all set there, George?
Yeah, I think that basically tells you what I've been up to.
Bruce, this is Ned. I have a question. So, well, it's just one thing before that. The house on 11 on the other side of that one, we had an application on that. No, the one to the north of that.
Oh, this
Yeah,
one's,
we had an application on that.
Yep.
I don't know, a couple of years back.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't they have a conservation easement going along the back of that as part of that?
Right through here, it kind of splits this. It splits the property line. I think there's some of it's on this side, some of it's on that side. We've walked through, and it's pretty. It's not very steep. It's very low lying. It was very wet. So like I said, it kind of just meanders up and heads up towards Reservation Road.
That's it.
My other question is on 11, I mean, did he just mistake his property line and he cleared that out, or did she ask him to clear? I mean, do we know what happened there?
I'll let them answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah, she did. I asked her and she told me to clean it out, to clear it out.
Okay. Okay. That's all I wanted to know is
Okay.
if she was aware of it being cleaned out.
Yeah,
You there, Chair?
I did talk to her too, and she was aware of it.
Okay. Chair, are you there?
Robert.
Yeah,
Oh.
you probably saw the smoke coming up.
I smelled something, but I said it's kind of far
Yeah.
away. So
I mean, it looks as though there's a very significant area that right now is disturbed. So I guess what I'm not understanding, George, is how this whole area is going to be stabilized through the winter. I mean, it's not just the wetland area, but I mean, it looks like everything's just been clear cut and taken down to the raw dirt. So
Correct.
if that is the case, then how, how do we stabilize it in a relatively short period of time? Because we've got a very small window, to try to minimize any type of erosion issues, at least for the winter, until we've got a window of time where we can start figuring out, okay, now that the weather's starting to turn and things will actually grow, what do we do?
Yeah, there's several things to say. One is, apart from the slopes that are going down to the ditch, those are the ones that I'm most concerned with. Obviously, there's a slope. The rest of the areas are fairly level. I think that was part of what was the intent, because obviously there was probably some, I wouldn't call it microtopography, but some natural undulation with the vegetation that was there, and that was basically smoothed. So it's not going to run off like the slope would. However, there's a few options. Some people think that you can still throw down winter rye and get a little bit of something going on between now and December. So that's one possibility. Straw will help, especially in those areas that are pitching towards the ditch or the swale. There's also, and one can find that either in Lowe's or Home Depot, there is a bag tackifier. I think they're 25, 30 pounds or so. I forget what it's called right now, which can be applied. And when that gets wet, it basically stabilizes the soil, and it's inert and it doesn't cause any issues going forward. So that's another potential that could be had, is to apply that tackifier. And
I've seen that. Is that a bag of straw with the tackifier on it? Or
no,
is it
it's like a pelletized form. It looks like you would think a Hydro C tackifier would look, as far as the we just applied it on a site not too far from where I'm sitting right now, which was slopey. And we applied annual ryegrass at the same time, but that was 3 or 4 weeks ago. So that will be a possibility. So it's just a granulated tackifier that when it gets wet, it basically gloms to the soil, and it helps. And putting down some winter rye might also be able to do something. But we're kind of running a little bit on the late side.
So in your professional opinion, what do you think is the more logical way to go on this?
to stabilize for winter anything that's sloping to the ditches, whether the new ditch or the enhanced ditch, if you will, plus above the brow of the slope for X amount of feet, say 25 feet or so. We could use straw. We can use that tackifier that I mentioned, and we might as well put some winter ride down and hope that something happens. And I think that would be sufficient for now. And also what I would also do is not only do the additional hay bale check dams, but also maybe do a couple more. One at the interface of the new ditch that's following the property boundary that I just talked to with the swale that receives more water, and also another one within the 11 Apple Tree Lane property swale. So altogether, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4.
Robert, you got your hand up?
Yes, it would seem, I mean, it's probably going to cost a little more and the availability may be questionable, but Mr. Logan, wouldn't it make sense to just hydro seed with tackifier and winter rye? Shoot the whole area with a hydro seeder?
What I've heard from those folks is they don't like to put the winter rye seed in with a tackifier because it gloms up the works. So usually what happens is you spread by hand the annual rye, the winter rye in this particular case, and then throw the tackifier on top.
I think that would be what I'd like to see. And I think we're all expressing the same concern that a significant amount of area was opened up. And it's important for Mr. Rodriguez to understand that whatever happens in the next week or two, you're going to be responsible for maintaining that over the next 6 months. So you can install all of these soil and erosion control measures this week or next week. If there's a heavy rain, then it's your responsibility each and every time it rains to maintain and reinstall as necessary. I think there's probably a great deal of frustration by the commission because we saw an application from you earlier in the year. We worked with you to give you an approval so you could install your pool knowing that this area was regulated, and you took it on yourself to go and clear cut not only your own property, but the neighbor's property. And the question I have for Bruce is your notes identify you had reached out to the property owner at number 11.
Yes.
Did you, Bruce, have any direct conversation or get any correspondence from the property owner at number 11?
In terms of what happened?
Or what her preference would be on restoration?
No, haven't even talked to her about that yet. I said that once we get to that stage, definitely as being the property owner, she's going to need to be involved.
Okay, and Bruce, I'd like to have that conversation be direct from staff and not through the owner of number 9.
Oh, definitely. I was going to actually, I was going to have her call in on some of these if possible, if she can do any of these Zoom meetings, and have her be on here as well to answer any questions the commissions may have.
Thank you.
And George, I'd also like to be there the next time you go out there, so we can really look at some of this micro topography and look at the erosion control and see if anything else needs to be done. All right.
So what about the surveyor? Does the commission want to see the surveyor do a little topography there or provide any topography? Obviously, the clearing limit needs to be put on a map so we can all see it and know where it was. I think he said he had that for at least 9 Apple Tree. I'm not sure he had it for 11. And there might be also some elevations for each of the flags that were on 11 that might give us an idea of topographical variation. Because if you go out there and look at it, and the stakes are still there, And I think, Bruce, you and I should probably do that. So you can kind of see my issue of trying to figure out what was not so much what was going on at 9, but what happened at 11. I think I'm clear with what happened at 9. I'm not so clear with 11. And so I was wondering if maybe some topographical survey might be in order to help out with that, because at some point I have to be able to definitively answer in a commission question as to what's the difference between what's there for topography along the swale versus what's there now. Because as I looked at the pictures, the aerial photographs, there was an area that spans from between 9 and just over the line at 11 that appeared to be a little more wider than what it exists now. Maybe that's just an artifact of the fact that, you know, the channel has been deepened a little bit, and maybe that's what's throwing me off. But again, I wasn't there, so I'm trying to kind of piece things together. And Mr. Jackson and I have been having this conversation. So he's trying to help me and, you know, look at his notes, etc.
Well, I agree. If you need that, we need that as well. And then we need the limits of clearing staked as well. So really he's going back out in my eyes and restaking or locating all of this disturbance as well as all of this disturbance as well. And coming back onto this property as far as we need to understand where the wetlands are, what needs to be blended, and what's going to be included as part of the restoration plan.
Yeah, I think that will be helpful, especially the tree line. And maybe, I mean, the tree line, I think he said he had it, so we can make a comparison between what was there before and what is there now.
And Bruce, I'll throw my 2 cents in on this. Here, the concern that I have that keeps spinning around in my head is, I mean, it's nice to talk about some of these things that we need to do, and I fully understand we need to do them. But in the meantime, we have a very small window in which to try to stabilize this area.
Definitely.
And what I'm concerned about is getting some of these other things done now is going to delay stabilizing the property for wintertime.
All right.
That's my big concern.
Yeah, and it's not just the property at number 9, it's the property at number 11 as well.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
The whole package, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Mr. Chairman and Bruce, I agree that we can't wait until December 7th, our next meeting.
No.
On the stabilization measures. Those we have the good fortune of, an extended forecast that looks relatively dry and mild.
Yeah.
So
You
it's a
guys
very time critical issue.
If you guys don't mind, and if you don't mind, if staff works with them, everything that we've taken down here with the tactifier, the hay bale check dams, the straw, the annual rye, I can actually work with George either tomorrow or Friday and meet him out there, get this all wrapped up and have Byron out there so we can get started on this stuff on Saturday.
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in Maine starting tomorrow. I'm waiting for my granddaughter to be born.
Okay.
But I can certainly have conversations over the phone, and
Okay.
I'll be available Monday.
I'll go buy materials tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Byron?
I said I'll go buy the materials tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk in the morning. I'll give you a call, because I think what we need to figure out is if the bag tackifier is sufficient with, supplement with straw and annual rye, or if we need, more conventional hydro seeding to happen. But that usually you can't really schedule something like that in a day or two. It usually takes a few more days. And honestly, I would have to do a little research and figure out who can do it. But let's have this discussion tomorrow. I can be reached by phone anytime, Bruce, so feel free to call me if you have any questions. I'll be in the field and Suffield in the morning, but then I'll be traveling to Maine in the afternoon.
All right, Chair, so if you don't mind me jumping in here, then saying maybe by the December 7th meeting, we have a map in our hand of everything that we talked about, the clearing limits, the topo, and be able to understand a little more what's happened. And then from there, we can schedule meetings. I don't want this to get away from us. You know what I mean? I mean, because soon after the next meeting, we could be getting snow, you know, and then once it's all covered up, we're kind of stuck. So, but I'd like to then have certain dates, target dates to hit. So we're ready to open ground in April or May and start getting the stuff all planted.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, my concern is it's not so much April and May, but it's now.
Oh, yeah,
April and May, yeah, we need the plans to have some idea of what we're doing, what needs to be done, what the conditions on the site are. But like I said, my primary concern is making sure this site gets stabilized as quickly as possible. So I think with some of the stuff that George is talking about, that's good information. It gives him chance to go ahead, pull some of it together. We can get some of that information on plans. We can get the topos, hopefully, things of that nature, and have that for the December 7th meeting. But that doesn't mean we waited until then to start stabilizing the site. I'd like to have some ideas to when that might start.
I agree. I don't think we want to wait till December 7th. I mean, I think between Bruce and George or whomever, we get a plan and it starts implementing it. I don't know if we need to run everything by the commission. It's just, I mean, normally we might do that, but since we have a 4-week period till our next meeting, I don't think we can wait till December 7th, whatever the first meeting in December is.
7, yeah.
No,
So
I agree. I mean, if you
think-
don't mind me doing it as staff, like I said, George said he'll be back on Monday. We can get this, you know, he can get some information over to Byron today and or tomorrow and Friday. He can get some of it ordered, at least like getting hay bales out there. So on Monday they can start putting the stuff down.
If our next meeting was in 2 weeks, it'd be one thing, but our next meeting is in 4 weeks. So I don't think we can wait for that. I think we just need to leave it up to staff and George and to come up with the plan and start implementing, and we could review in December and see if we're comfortable with everything that was done.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the site's got to be stabilized within the next week and a half at the latest.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, some of the stuff that George is talking about, you know, it may not have an impact on what the ultimate plan is going to be come December 7th. But if he has that information for December 7th, at least we can start seeing what issues we have to deal with on the properties. But again, the primary issue right now is getting the site stabilized prior to winter. So that's my take on it.
Yes.
And I mean, Bruce, you guys know what you're doing. You've worked with the commission for a while, you know, so staff knows what we're looking for.
Commissioner Eisner has his hand raised.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
Robert?
Yeah, I was just going to say it is a 2-step process, and I absolutely agree that Bruce can direct the activities over the next couple of days, next couple of weeks. What we'll see on December 7th will start the process on what the restoration plan to be carried out in the spring would be. But, you know, we have to take advantage of the very short opportunity to get the site stabilized so that there aren't more problems throughout the winter. And that's something that Bruce, you know, we fully trust your, well, I'll speak for the commission, but I fully trust your judgment on those short-term decisions over the next couple of days. And George, Logan, you've worked with us to do enough restoration and soil erosion plans. You have a pretty good sense for what we'd be looking for as well.
Certainly, yep.
So Bruce, does that help?
Yes, it does. Definitely. Thank you. And what I'll do is, if we get whatever work we get done next week, I'll take some updated photos and I can get those over to the commission in the meantime, just so they have an understanding that everybody feels comfortable that our erosion control work has been completed.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you. You bringing up the proposed schedule?
Yes, sir.
I'll bid you all good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, George.
Take care.
Good luck this weekend, George.
All right. Oh, sounds good. Call me. Thanks. Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Good luck.
Oh, you getting Nova Scotia lobster?
All right. So we had touched upon this, I think, a little earlier, a couple meetings ago when we were putting it all, when actually not we, but Sandy was putting it all together. So these are all the dates here. Has anyone had a chance to go through them? Any problems?
One of the things I didn't look for is, are there any conflicts with holidays?
We did that, and that was the one time that I had come back, and what I had said is that there was one holiday conflict, and what was that one?
July 5th?
No, it was
The first meeting in July is 12th.
yeah, no, it wasn't Hanukkah. It was Rosh Hashanah or something like that. I had mentioned that during one of the meetings,
Okay.
and there wasn't any kind of a kickback. So this is the one with all the calendars, or with all the holidays on there. So yeah, Sandy puts everything together with all the other commissions, so we could see everything in one spot. So you got these meetings here. February, nothing there. March, these two. So
And
Just
Bruce, is
looking
there any
at the-
discussion at town hall as to whether we're going to stay with remote, or is there a thought to
That's up
shift
to-
back to?
right now,
in-person?
that's up to the commissions. That's each of the commissions. There are some committees that are meeting in person. I know that TPZ is still on Zoom. They're talking. There's been some talk of them wanting to come back as well. So really, it's up to you guys right now. If the commission wants to go back to in person, just let us know and we can make that happen. So.
Well, maybe we can have more discussion about it in December, and I mean, I don't think we would do anything before then, or.
For what? You mean in person?
Yeah.
Oh,
to go
no,
back
yeah,
to in-person.
the meetings are set, whether we do it
Yeah.
Zoom or in person
Yeah.
at this point, so. And here we are, back December 2023. I went a year already, but yeah, there was only that one conflict we had. And because I had researched a couple of the other holidays, and I think it was like I want to say it was Rosh Hashanah or something, and it was
Okay.
during one of those periods, and I brought it up and everyone was good with it, so.
Oh, we changed July, right?
Why?
Yeah, July was
July?
changed. Instead of having it on the 5th, you moved it to the 12th.
Which I think is good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, yes, yep, the 12th, so.
That's fine.
Yeah, but just, yeah, because we don't meet in August, so,
Mhm.
we don't have to worry about, what would it have been, the 9th, I guess, in August, so we're fine. So I'm assuming you need a motion to approve the schedule for 2023?
Yes, please.
Sandy would like that.
Okay. Well, with all the work you do for us, it's the least we can do for you, Sandy. So can I get a motion to approve the proposed schedule of the 2023 Conservation and Wetlands Commission meetings?
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Second, Rich.
Okay, have a motion on the floor to accept the proposed schedule of 2023 Conservation and Inland Wetland Commission meetings. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining?
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you, Sandy.
Welcome.
Planners report.
None. Nothing at this point. I don't think you want me to talk anymore or bore you guys, so.
Okay, we'll let it go at that. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2022 Inland Wetlands Commission meeting?
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Second by Robert Eisner.
Thank you. Have a motion on the floor to approve the October 19th, 2022 Inland Wetland Commission meeting minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining. I've got 9:37. We'll close the Wetlands Commission meeting and convene the Conservation Commission meeting. Other business, Kakiewicz annual meeting.
I didn't get anyone that emailed me to register. So
Nobody went?
as far as I know, nobody went.
Okay. All right. No planners report?
None.
They have an agenda.
What's that?
Okay.
We have an agenda.
I know.
I'm looking at this next one, meeting minutes, and I'm a little slow right now.
It's getting late. We understand.
Approve. Yeah, so, okay. But we should be approving the October 19th commission
Yes.
meeting minutes, correct?
Yep.
Okay, but I didn't see it on the calendar. That's why I was.
Oh,
trying to
it's not on
figure
the
out where
agenda?
I was going.
On the agenda.
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's on.
Minutes.
Okay. I'm seeing something different, but that's okay. I've done this before. So can I have a motion to approve the October 19th, 2022 Conservation Commission meeting minutes?
So move, Mark.
Is there a second?
Second, Ned.
Okay. Those in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstaining? Is that it until December, Bruce?
That's it. So if we don't get any more applications, we're down to Tane Mountain Road, River Road, and the cease and desist. So hopefully it's a shorter meeting. I'll set up a site walk with everybody for the River Road piece.
Should we think about maybe if we get an agreement on a site walk for River Road, then maybe go over and look at Tane, or not Tane Mountain, Apple Tree? Because they should be doing some of these repairs should have been made by then, right? By the time we do a site walk for.
That's up to the commission, you know?
Okay.
One of the things that we still haven't done is election of officers.
The election of officers is next
January, isn't it?
Is it January?
No.
December?
Oh, it says on your.
Within a period not exceeding 30 days after the first day of October.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're waiting till October 23.
Yeah, 30 days after first day of October.
All right.
Or even June.
So that's something we need to do at the next meeting.
Okay.
So please add that to the agenda.
Yep,
Okay.
definitely.
So you're not in a fog. You're on top of it. You're sharp.
That's
We
why I've
missed
had to
it.
keep muting myself because when I start coughing, I need to mute.
If we just say, I'm good, does that cover it?
Sure.
Um,
So I guess we will see people in December 7th. So
Yep.
have a wonderful actually, we got a couple of holidays this month. So enjoy, be safe, and we'll see people in December.
Yes.
Happy
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
All right.
Take
So
care.
we might,
All right.
we might see each other sooner for the site walk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Hopefully.
Before.
Until then, have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.